Hey guys, today I wanted to talk about PVCs or pre-ventricular contractions. I know this is like a topic out of the blue, you might think, but this is something that affects many perimenopausal and menopausal women. And actually, I had this experience myself early this year, and it can be kind of very rough and stressful time. So that's why I wanted to kind of take my experience and share that with you and also give you tips on how to handle this if you end up experiencing these yourself. So first of all, what are PVCs? PVCs are preventricular contractions, or sometimes they're also called as preventricular complexes. But basically, they are an abnormal heart rhythm. So when you take an EKG, then in that it will show as that there is an extra contraction. So you have a normal heart rhythm, and your EKG shows that, and then in addition, like your ventricles just contract an additional time. Sometimes they contract one additional time per contraction or sometimes two also, but there are some additional contractions in between your normal heart rhythm, and that is what PVCs is. And how do you experience it? What do you feel? So in my case, what happened was, early this year, randomly, I started feeling I started feeling like flutter in my chest, in my left, chest area. I started feeling that fluttering sensation. And normally, right, normally you go about your day-to-day life, you never feel that your heart is beating. But in this case, I was feeling that, and I was feeling that strange fluttering sensation, which, immediately kind of makes you a little bit more vigilant, and you are, paying more attention to what's happening. And then I started noticing, after a day or two, I started noticing that they were very intense. They were becoming very more intense, and I could feel it like really strong. Something was, like a contraction was happening very strong. So I was like, what is this? This is like not the usual way my heart beats. And then I started feeling some sensation across on my left arm, radiating, in my left arm, and even my wrist. I could feel like the pulse throbbing in my wrist. So that's when, I just walked into the urgent care. I mean, I just decided that I couldn't just sit here at home. That's the first thing you always hear about, like left arm throbbing, and it could be signs of a heart attack. So I was just like, let me drive myself. I was alone at home that day, so but I drove myself to the urgent care, and there they did the EKG, and they could see that there were these extra contractions. So the doctor there told me to follow up with my physician, and she said that sometimes these could be like, normal. But I said I had never had them before. I had had EKGs done before, but they had never shown up on my EKG in the past. So she said definitely follow up. And so I immediately followed up with my PCP. When I went to his office, again, he did the EKG, and again had the same thing. He saw the same thing. So then he referred me to a cardiologist. Now, until the time, I know the cardiologist appointment was like 2 days away. And until that time, I was just getting more and more anxious. My PCP assured me that he didn't think this was like critical, like a heart attack kind of a thing. But it was an arrhythmia. And so he definitely thought that I should, see a cardiologist who could advise me more specifically as to what needed to be done. Now, for me, the way I am, I immediately go to the internet and started researching. And I was really thankful to the community on YouTube, because when I Google or search for PVCs on YouTube, I found a lot of useful videos. And there is one, not one, actually, numerous ones by York Cardiology, who's a cardiologist himself. And that those videos were very helpful to me, primarily for the reason that they kind of comforted me a little bit, saying that, this is nothing to be that scared of, like, that just calm down. It's something that's not like life-threatening. So at least once I heard that it was not life-threatening, that was a little bit reassuring and comforting. However, every time it happens, you just feel very anxious. So the PVCs, are very closely related to anxiety. And in my case, that weekend when I was waiting to meet with a cardiologist and these PVCs kept happening on and on, I was having really PVCs to a moderate degree. So that's another thing. So some people, PVCs, they get all the time. For example, whenever they have caffeine, they might feel that sensation, and then they're used to it. That's how it is. They know that when they have caffeine, they will feel it and then it'll go away. But for some people, they have like a moderate degree where it's bothersome that the cardiologist or the doctor will advise some medications for them and things like that. In my case, I kept thinking what caused it, and for me, the big thing that I was suspecting was my hormonal therapy. So my functional medicine doctor, who I was seeing for my hormonal therapy, had recently doubled my estrogen dose. So for me, I was like trying to put two and two together, and I knew that from the moment he had increased my estrogen dose, I was having a lot of anxiety symptoms. And then in January, I began to have these PVCs. So for me, immediately that was like, and so I reached out to him. He said that he didn't think it was anything to do with the estrogen dose. Anyway, I'll talk more in detail in another video where I talk about specifics of my HRT therapy and my HRT experience. But going back to the PVCs, something, in my gut was telling me that it had to do with the HRT increase in dose. And then I saw several articles online and a couple studies too, which said that women, when they were going through perimenopause or menopause, when there were fluctuations in the estrogen and progesterone levels, they can experience PVCs. And many women, when they are actually, just prior to their cycle, also in the luteal phase, they experience PVCs as well. So just seeing those studies also was enough like evidence for me that mine could be related to the hormonal therapy. So that, yeah, as I was saying, that weekend was very, 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 what do you say? Like I was very anxious, and that anxiety caused my blood pressure to shoot up. And so then we ended up going into the emergency room, even though my cardiologist appointment was like the following Monday. But that Sunday, we just couldn't because, it's like something to do with your heart and you're having anxiety. And then my blood pressure shot up, and we were not going to, my husband said, we're not going to taking a chance. And so we ended up going into the emergency room. There too, like my PVCs were coming really strong. The doctor there said that you are definitely not having a heart attack, but your heart is like doing some crazy rhythm right now. So they gave me a beta blocker. There itself, they administered me a beta blocker to like slow my heart down to ease that heart rate. And so that wouldn't make the PVCs go away, but at least that intensity with which those extra contractions were happening, they would reduce. Beta blocker in general reduces or slows the heart rate and reduces the intensity. So that helped somewhat. And then they again, just asked me to follow up with meet the cardiologist, which was I was going to do anyway the next day. So when I met with my cardiologist, he took my history, and then he also thought that it probably was related to the HRT, and he also recommended that maybe I go back to the lower dose that I was on. And then the cardiologist, thankfully, my cardiologist that I went to was a very integrative mind, and he told me that magnesium supplement can actually help as well in many cases. And so he recommended me that I take a magnesium supplement. Strangely, like I have always been taking magnesium on and off, for my RA, I take several supplements, and magnesium is one of the important supplements that I do take. However, whenever I take magnesium on a continuous basis, I have like loose bowels, and therefore like I can't tolerate it that well, and I have tried different forms of it, including magnesium glycinate, but so that's why I was like taking, I always take breaks and then I take it for 2 weeks and then I stop. So around this time, I wasn't taking magnesium. So immediately when the doctor said, I was like, yes, I'll get on it because anyway, I have the supplement at home. So I came back home and immediately started the magnesium. And since I'd also read online about the impact of magnesium on PVCs, and they recommended taking at least 400 milligram. And that would mean that I would have to take like at least 3 capsules of it. So I didn't want to take it at once. And I just broke it into 2 doses. And I would take 2 capsules around 240 milligram in the afternoon after lunch and 240 milligram later after dinner. This actually helped me. I saw that when I was splitting the dose, I did have the loose bowels. It's also possible that I was so deficient in magnesium that my body needed that at that time, that the loose bowels was not an issue. So I kept taking this, regimen of 480 milligram magnesium for 2 weeks. And actually, after a week itself, I started noticing the reduction in my PVCs. Okay, talking about reduction in PVCs, one other thing my cardiologist did when he met with me was he hooked me on to a Holter monitor. And what that Holter monitor is, it actually just, something that you put on your chest and with different electrodes all over your body. And that way you can monitor, they monitor the EKG over a 24-hour period. So the results of that showed that I was experiencing PVCs to the rate of 9% in a day. So in a day, in a 24-hour period, 9% of my contractions were having, PVC. So this was pretty moderately high. He called me and he told me that, you're less than 10%, which is good, because if you were greater than 10%, then I would call you again for more, a detailed checkup or monitoring or even hospitalization probably. But since you're under 10%, we are okay. So that was reassuring, although it was a little bit alarming that I was getting so many of these PVCs. The second thing, first thing I did for that was magnesium. Then second thing I did was I went back to my OBGYN who had originally prescribed my low HRT dose. And I just asked her that I wanted to go back to that low HRT dose. And so I went back to that immediately because, I just knew that my higher estrogen was probably causing all these issues and was probably the one that was causing the magnesium deficiency, because metabolism of estrogen also needs magnesium, so if there's too much estrogen circulating in your body, then that's probably the reason why it's magnesium deficient. So I did that. And then in general, I was also reading that for some people, even potassium levels could be related to their PVCs. So in general, I decided to have an electrolyte, and I will share the recipe of one that I made. It is that also I found it on YouTube. Basically like, different minerals you can mix in water and, keep it and then drink it throughout the day. So I started doing that as well. And in addition to all those, B vitamins was another thing that I was reading that could, affect the heart if you had a deficiency of some B vitamins, B12 being one, and then also other ones like B1 and B6. Basically all the different B vitamins had to have a role to play in, how the heart functions. So just to be safe, I, got a B complex supplement and I started taking that, and then B12 because that's a little bit more important. And by that time, it was like almost a week since I was having these PVCs, and I used to feel the sensation or like a burning sensation even going up to my face. And I had checked with my cardiologist if this could be related to the PVCs. And he said, yes, it's probably related to the PVCs because those extra contractions were so powerful that it was just like going everywhere. And so every time that extra contraction would happen, I would feel like a strange sensation. And because it was like a burning sensation, I thought that maybe just taking B12 extra would help, because anything to do with the nerves, it's B12 is good. So for a week, actually, I took additionally liquid B12 drops as well, just for a week. And then I continued with the B complex. These were important things. And then the fourth important thing that really, really helped me a lot was deep breathing. And the particular type of deep breathing that helped me was, again, one that I saw on YouTube. It was very helpful. Basically, it is just, exhaling and inhaling, for a certain amount of time, holding your breath for a certain amount of time. And the YouTube video was really helpful because it actually shows you the chart, how long you should hold for inhale, how long you should hold, and then how long you should exhale. So it was like I just put the YouTube on and I kept doing that. And then once I figured out how to do it, I could do it anytime. And doing it at any time was actually very helpful because I started, I used to feel more PVCs whenever I would lay down in bed after dinner. And I would see them, coming. So then this deep breathing helped me a lot. So even when PVC was happening, I could feel that it had started. Doing the deep breathing would actually slow it down, and within 5 minutes, it would go away completely. So that was like really, really helpful. So that's another video that I will share with you guys. But basically, these are things that helped me a lot. And so I wanted to share that with you. In addition, there were other videos that I saw where people were recommending using taurine, and I bought that and I had that too. But I don't think it made that much of a difference for me, as much of a difference I saw with basically magnesium. I think magnesium was the one, and deep breathing was the one that made the biggest difference. And then slowly, after 2 weeks, it started going down. And then incidentally, my stress test was scheduled after 2 weeks. And when I went to the stress test, I was like a nervous wreck. I was just not, I was so anxious, but I passed it. Even at the stress test, the doctor who was doing it could see that my PVCs were happening even at that time, but I passed the stress test. So that was good. That was a big relief. And then my echocardiogram after that, that also came out normal. So everything was fine. So I wanted to tell you this though. So I'm talking specifically about my case, which means PVCs in, menopause or perimenopause, you can say, or people on HRT. So, that could be like, that's very specific. There could be PVCs happening for other reasons too. So it's always important to, whatever the case may be, even if you're having PVCs, even if your PVCs are related to menopause, I highly recommend or absolutely recommend that you see a cardiologist. That's like that's a given. You have to absolutely see a cardiologist, make sure you do all the tests and rule out anything critical, right? But in addition, then you can do these things that help me, and I hope that helps you as well. And as I said, then the hormonal issues remain to be fixed. And for me, I think after I reduced my dose, I think things started to settle down again. And after a month, I was fine. But then again, every month, because I still have a period with the HRT, I noticed that whenever I'm having my period, I begin to have those sensations. They are not to the, that extent that I experienced them before, but they're still happening. But however, now that, we have done all the tests and done everything and met with the cardiologist, I don't get anxious about them and know that they are not life-threatening. And so I just kind of distract myself, or I just do the deep breathing, which helps. So I hope this video is helpful to you if you are experiencing PVCs. They're also basically like palpitations. So sometimes people will just say, palpitations. But the technical term for that is PVCs, and that will be shown in an electrocardiogram. It will be seen as an abnormal rhythm. All right, guys. Bye.